guess I got to say roll tide. I guess I got to say I have to go on and get it out the way. Go on and get it out the way. Go down. Yeah, okay. They gone. They gone. But you can't argue with success. So for all of those who are excited and happy about the victory yesterday, we celebrate with those who celebrate. How many folks are mourning with those who mourn? But just wanted to extend that congratulations.
Thank you.
You're more than willing to accept it, huh? Some of y'all need Jesus. I wanted to kind of follow up and finish up on something that I was talking about last week. We've been on a series of actually understanding how to navigate through the storms of life, how to navigate through the storms and how to get through the storms that are in life. We already understand and know that storms are a part of life. It's not something that might happen. In this world, you shall have tribulation, you shall have trouble and trial, and those things are part of this condition that we live in a fallen world. It's a fallen world. And there's going to be a restoration to this world, but at this particular time, we're dealing with a fallen state, and we're living in it. But praise be to God, He didn't leave us alone. And we have the Holy Spirit, the anointing and the power of God to help us, to shield us. He said at His time of trouble, He shall hide me. So I can trust that He'll hide me sometime when things are going on, and I can trust and believe in Him. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Somebody say amen. Amen. I want you to turn to something. I'm going to pray for them folks in audio because I'm going to go all over the place today. Go to Mark chapter 4, verse 39. Mark 4:39. We're talking about storms. We're talking about navigating storms. And in our previous lessons, we've talked about there are going to be storms that come regardless. We also talked about the fact that there's the weather storm. Those kind of things. And then there's some storms that we create and cause on our own. Yeah. And so we're kind of navigating through this, and the whole overall theme of this lesson is to help you to understand that God doesn't personally send you through storms in order to perfect or grow you. Amen. The whole purpose of this is to help us to understand that God is not sitting there orchestrating bad times and hard times and temptations and trouble in order to get you to a higher place in life. Because if that were the case, that would mean that He would be working with Satan. And there's no partnership between God and Satan. The Bible says that the thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. He said, but no, I'm come that you might have life and life more abundantly. So there's no partnership between God and Satan just to try to manipulate your life. There's no such thing. Satan's trying to kill you, and God's trying to expose to you great life. Amen. Somebody say amen. Amen. Now, I want you to look at this because I think there's a theme here that we need to see in this text that will help us to understand a little bit about the power of God. And I won't say it that way, but not necessarily the power in this situation, but what's stronger than what? Mark chapter 4, verse 39. When you get there, say amen. Amen. Now, this is talking about Jesus in the boat when the storm arose while they were trying to cross to get to the other side. And it says, and He arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Now, there's a theme in this that I want all of us to kind of catch. Many times we're focusing in on the fact that He spoke and the wind ceased. And that's a good thing to focus on because He had the physical ability to speak to something and cause it to shut down. But I think the real issue or the real theme behind this text that we're looking at right here is the fact that the power of God is greater than storms. Amen. The power of God is greater, and even more so, we can look at it from this point, the Word of God is greater than storms. Amen. the word of God is greater than storms. He spoke a word, and the word changed the circumstance and the environment. Boy, if y'all don't get anything else I say today, get that right there. He spoke the word, and the word changed the circumstance and environment. He spoke a word, and the word changed the circumstance and environment. And I believe God is trying to get us to understand that in the focus of our lives, the Word of God is placed in a place to where we have it as a tool to use when our circumstances and our environments are not going the way that we believe or feel like they should be going. Can I get a witness? Yeah. Now, I don't know about you, but there's some things in my environment, in my circumstance, that I could really kind of use some adjusting right now. Amen. So he gave us the Word, and the Word was sent, and the Word was developed and put in place for us to have a chance to change our environment. I want to go over a couple of strategies for you to just kind of keep in mind. I got about 9 messages up here. God done blended them all. So we might get something to eat today. Only kidding, just joking. I want to say this, I want to make this statement. The presence of a storm does not mean you're out of the will of God. Amen. The presence of a storm does not mean you're out of God's will. In other words, just because a storm type situation or climate or environment is going on, that does not mean that you've missed it. It could be a situation that you just in a bad place as it relates to where you're going. Now, I'm going to read a story. I started reading it last week, and I want to it's a long story, but I think it's important for us to understand because there's some things in it that we need to hear. Your life has all types of circumstances going around it. Amen. Amen. And at the end of the day, there's a destination that you should be trying to achieve. Yes, right? Amen. Well, I'm not just talking about heaven. Yes, Lord. Amen. Yes, Lord. I'm not just heaven. You take care of heaven when you receive Jesus as Lord of your life. Yes. But there's some other destinations that God has planned for you that you should be striving for. Amen. But you can't get to them if you don't do it in God. Right. Amen. There you go. Does that make sense to anybody? Amen. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up where I left off last week. Go to Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37. This is a story of Joseph. Many of you know Joseph and the coat of many colors. He was favored by Jacob because he was conceived in Jacob's old age. And because he was conceived in his old age, he favored him more than his other sons. Now that's a part of the problem. And that's from a parental standpoint. There may be times when you have favorites, but you got to treat everybody the same. Amen. Did I say verse 37? Yes. Chapter 37? Yes. And Jacob dwelled y'all there? Yes, sir. And Jacob dwelled in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and Lad was with the sons of Bala and with the sons of Zelphah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. In other words, they couldn't even talk to him nice. Number one, they were jealous of him, and they couldn't even talk to him nice. They didn't even say nice things to him. They always said ugly things to him, harsh things to him, because of the envy and because of the strife. Now, I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again, because don't ever forget this. Nothing brings out haters more than favor. Amen. You got favor on your life, you're going to have some haters come around. Amen. Because haters can't stand favor. That's right. Amen. Amen. I said haters can't stand favor. Amen. What favor does is show them that they don't have it. All right. Amen. Amen. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they, watch this, hated him yet the more. Second thing that brings haters out and make them hate is when you got a vision, but they don't have one. Amen. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaves arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaves, or they worshipped him. And his brethren said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they, watch this, hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his word. Listen, don't tell everybody your dream. Amen. 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 Don't tell everybody everything God says to you. Because everything that God says to you, everybody else can't handle. All right. Matter of fact, most of what God says to you, other folks can't handle. And that is just take a little commercial right here. Quit trying to run around and get confirmation from everybody about what God has spoken to you. Because when God speaks something to you, he may not have said anything to anybody else. Some things you got to walk out on your own. Amen. Somebody say amen. Amen. Praise the Lord. And he dreamed yet another dream. And here you go, told it his brother, and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and even the stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and he should have, and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him. But his father observed the same. Now watch this. So now his daddy, he said, you know what? We need to keep an eye on this. Because I believe he's heard from God. So I need to watch it. Sometimes parents, your children will say stuff that may seem a little far-fetched. But it might be them hearing from God. Because it might not match what you think. But it might be them hearing from God. Don't just throw it away and tell them stop that nonsense. Amen. That's all I'm going to say about that. There's a lot of commercials in this. And his brethren went to feed their flocks in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flocks in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, here I am. And he said to him, go, and I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, what seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren, tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, they are departed hence, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. That's a storm, isn't it? Now, first of all, he's in a storm because of his own mouth. His brothers hate him. They don't talk nice to him at all. They don't say anything nice to him. They don't encourage him. They're jealous of him. They envy him. His dad has just rebuked him for talking and telling all about the dream and stuff. So his life is in a little bit of a trauma situation. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I just want to show you how this navigation of his life and how he went through this situation as a storm. And they said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. See, they call him names. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him. They're going to kill him. And cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dream. So they hated him so much that they wanted to kill their own brother. And then they decided that they were going to kill him and throw him in a hole and just say, see, let's just see what happened with these dreams now. So that's just serious, y'all. That's serious. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands. So that one of the brothers said, no, we're not going to kill him. And said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but let's cast him into this pit, that in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it, and they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came and from Gilead, and their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? In other words, what are we going to get out of it if we just kill him? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. So in other words, some of them came to their senses and decided, this is our brother, and we shouldn't kill him. So let's make some money off of him. Then there passed by the Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and left up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned. Now, I'm gonna stop there and just kind of explain. Now, think about it. He's 17 years old. His brothers have just disowned him. Threw him in a pit and sold him to merchantmen going to Egypt down to sell products and stuff. And so they sold their brother to merchants going down to Egypt. And what they're going to do is turn around and sell him again to the Egyptians as a slave. He's been sold into slavery. Wouldn't you say that's a storm? Yes. Would anybody in here say that's a storm of life? Yes. Okay. So he's 17 years old. And he's in this storm. He's just been sold. Now, I'm gonna go over to chapter 39. Chapter 39. Now this is interesting because it says some things that you try to say, well, wait a minute, how did that happen? But we know that he stayed focused on God. Yes. Notice what it says in chapter 39, verse 1. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. Watch this. And the Lord was with Joseph. Now, you've got no Bible? Your Bible? Highlight that. The Lord was with him. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now watch this. And his master saw that watch this. And his master saw that the Lord was with him. And that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hands. So now God was working on Joseph in such a way that no matter what he put his hands to, it prospered. Now here's a guy here's a slave master who's taking note of a slave that everything he touched prospers. But he in a storm. Don't forget that. The overlying theme is Joseph is in a storm of life. He's in a place where he's been sold into slavery. but God is working in it.
Amen. Amen.
Somebody say amen.
Amen.
So, and his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hands. And Joseph found grace in his sight, see? And he served him. And he made him, watch this, overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hands. And it came to pass that the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed, watch this, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. Now listen to this. The Egyptian was prospering because of a slave that was in his house that God had his hand on. Don't you think your boss don't know if you got God's favor on your life? Don't think he don't see it. Because when you're prospering and everything you touch and you're working with somebody, they watch it. They're watching you. And if they can see you prospering in your position, watch this. Everybody else been in that position and ain't nobody else made nothing happen. They plug you in there and all of a sudden everything start working right. Don't think your boss don't see that.
All right. Amen.
That was another commercial.
All right.
You know, you have a lot of them doing TV shows.
All right.
Yeah. And so now watch this. So it came to pass, in other words, he saw, and the Lord, and the blessings of the Lord was upon all that he had in his house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hands. Now he done left everything to a slave. And he knew not aught he had save the bread which he did eat. He didn't know anything that he had except what he had for dinner. That's how much he trusted him. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. Now, and it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph. And she said, lie with me. So now, his boss wasn't the only one that was paying him attention. Can I get a witness? Boss's wife was watching too. He said he was a goodly person. He was saying he was a handsome man and well favored. Now watch this. He's in a storm.
Amen.
He already a slave.
All right.
Been distanced from his family, sold by his brothers, hadn't seen his parents, mom and daddy. He's in a foreign land and he's prospering, but he's in a storm. Amen? Amen? Okay. So now, but he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in this house. In other words, he don't even know what he got in his house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no greater in this house than I. Neither hath he kept back anything, anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. Say it all together. Thou art his wife. And that's not his. Still didn't get all participation there. Notice this next statement. In a storm. He in a storm. Foreign land. Slavery. Brothers did him wrong. Notice what he says. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Now, let's bring this into 2018.
All right.
You in jail. And there's a warden. And the warden's wife walking around. Now you in jail now. I mean like clank clank. I'm not talking about just pretend jail. You in prison. And the warden's wife walking around. Why, I don't know. And she make a pass at you. You know now, I know ain't nobody in this room would do this. I know it. I know nobody in this room would do this. But some folk would be thinking, you know, if I get in with the warden wife, I could probably get a little shorter sentence. Get on up out of here. Now, I know nobody in here would do that.
Amen.
But somebody would.
Amen.
And a hush came over the crowd. See, I just wanted to be real. I want us to see it in the real context that it's in. This boy was in prison. He was working as a slave, and he was being approached by the man who owned him's wife. Some folk will see that as a hookup.
Way out.
Yeah. Avenue. A way of escape. But God don't supply them kind of ways of escape. Can I get a witness? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, so she wouldn't let up, but she was on him every day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie with her or to be with her. He went from not even sleeping with her to staying out of the same location. Every time she show up, he leaves. That's a good thing for some folk to understand.
Amen.
Sometimes you need to just leave people for sure. And it came to pass, commercial. And the next thing came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she come. And she called him. She just grabbed him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me," I said. He left his garment in her hand. He had to run out of his clothes. She had it bad, y'all. She had it bad. And garment in her hand, and fled and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, she called unto men of her house and spake unto them, saying, "See, he has brought in this Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and cried with a loud voice." So that's what she did. He tried to get me. Yeah, sexual harassment. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until her Lord came home. In other words, she kept the clothes and then laid them by her, so when he came home from work, see what he did. So now, moving down, and verse 20, and Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. That's a storm, isn't it? Amen. You could almost call this a double storm. He already a slave. He already been sold by his brothers into captivity. Now, in captivity, he's put in prison. So that's called a double storm. When you call that double trouble? That's double trouble. I want you to see that, because we're talking about how to navigate through storms. And I think it's real important to see how he handled himself in the midst of all this trouble. That will help you to understand how he got to the other side of it. And I got another point I want to share about this. And so now watch this. But the Lord, verse 21, here we go. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So now he in prison, and now he got favor with the man that's over the prison. Favor just staying on him. But I have to submit this to you and kind of give you a little peek into the answer. Because he kept his place in God. See, he kept his place in God and didn't compromise his position with God. God's favor stayed on him. So I'm giving you the answer to the test. In the process of going through your trial and tribulation, don't lose your place in God. Because you don't want the favor to leave. You need the favor in the storm. Is that making sense to anybody? So, and the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever he did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. He's still prospering. Amen. So no matter where he's placed, the favor of God is operating in his life. And I'm telling you, it's happening because he kept his place in God. Amen. He didn't jump on the first train that came by. Or the first opportunity that man was presenting to him. Amen. His wife was a trap. Yeah. That was a demonic trap. Amen. Now, it may not come to us in that same form, but we get trapped sometimes because we get caught up in stuff that we don't need to get caught up in, because Satan knows if he can get you caught up in that, the favor leaves. The favor leaves. So you get caught up in something, you get to doing and messing around with something that you don't have no business messing around with. The favor of God leaves and you're on your own. And Satan knows that, so he sends things your way just to see if you'll bite. Amen. He'll send you stuff just to see if you'll bite. Amen. 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 He fishing. Amen. Try to see if he can get you to bite. Amen. Amen. A pretty bait. Amen. A handsome bait. Amen. Muscles. Amen. Nice shape. Amen. Smell good. Amen. Just your kind. Amen. Just what I like. Amen. Bait. Amen. Amen. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Everybody else in the living room by myself. I appreciate you going with me. Woo! So God has given you what you need to handle in the midst of a storm. Amen. So now watch this. In chapter 40 it says, "And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and the baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And the Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the baker. And he put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison in the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph and them and served them, and they continued a season inward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them. Each man was his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came into them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the inward of his Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me then, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was, though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the cluster thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into the Pharaoh's cup, and gave the cup to Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is an interpretation of it. The 3 branches were 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. In other words, he's going to replace him and bring him back and restore him to the place where he was. But think on me when it shall be well with thee. Now, so notice that he said, now listen, when you get out here, think about me. Tell somebody that I'm in here. Because it seemed like they've forgotten about me, which tells me that he had been in there a long time. That's a storm, isn't it? So watch this. And show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. So he's in prison, man. He's been in there for a while. So, for indeed I was stolen away out of the land of. So he went into the whole story. Now, then the baker saw everything that went so well for him. He ready to tell his dream. He's excited. I may be finna get out. So when the chief baker saw the interpretation was good, he's like, ooh, oh, hey, let me tell you my dream. He said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uttermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. And he got excited. Ooh, 3. Okay, good. Then he said this, yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head off of thee, and shall hang thee on a tree. He probably went, hold up. Wait, this ain't going right. Hold it. You sure you got that right? And the birds shall eat the flesh from off thee. And it came to pass that the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, and he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker. Oh my goodness. Don't run around asking me about what your dream is. That's another commercial. And Joseph had interpreted to them, as Joseph had interpreted them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. That's a storm. He in here exercising his gift. He is in there doing what God has given him the gift for. He helping everybody. He helping everybody. He blessing the man that's over the jail. He blessing Pharaoh when he was at Pharaoh's Potiphar, when he was in his house. He blessing his house. He got everybody getting blessed. Everybody getting blessed but me. Anybody ever said that before? I guess I'm by myself with that. Sometimes you feel like everybody getting blessed. But don't you feel like that's something? When is it going to be my turn? Well, the whole thing is operating because he's staying in his position and place in God. Even though he seems to be going through a storm. I guess that's my word, stormatic. Stormatic experience. Yet he's still operating in the gift that God has given him. Some folk would get so mad at God by this time that they would say, man, forget God. I'm in jail. In other words, I done gone from jail to jail. I done gone from being a slave to being in prison. Man, this ain't working. Anybody ever felt like that?
Yes. Amen.
My pastor used to say, just because it look like you ain't winning, don't mean you're not. I receive that. Amen. Anybody else receive that word?
Amen.
So, we've got a situation where he's operated in his gift, but yet he's been forgotten. Literally, nobody knows. He feels like nobody even knows where he is. Now then, we have another situation. Pharaoh has a dream. And I'm gonna just kind of paraphrase this so I can get on down the road. Pharaoh has a dream, and in his dream, he dreams about 7 cows, 7 full cows, and 7 thin, sickly cows. And he doesn't know what it means, so he calls in and asks an interpreter. He needs somebody to interpret it. And so that's when the cupbearer finally remembers I know a guy that interpreted my dream that helped me to understand to be back here. Joseph, that's over in prison. Now that's interesting. It sideswiped Potiphar and went all the way to the top. And so he tells him the definition and the interpretation of the dream. So that brings us to, look at chapter 41. Look at verse 38. And it says, Genesis 41:38 says, and Pharaoh said unto his servant, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has shown thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Boy, that's awesome. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring of his hand, gave him some bling, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vesture and fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot. That's the BMW. Which he had, and they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Wow. Now that's awesome, isn't it? It is. So he gave him an interpretation of the dream, but God even gave him even a deeper insight that not only does he need to understand the dream, but he gave him, Joseph gave him the plan. In the 7 fat years, the cows represented fat years and lean years of famine. In the fat years, he was to accumulate as much grain and as much food as he could and store it up to prepare for the 7 lean years. And then in the 7 lean years, they would be able to have food enough for the kingdom of Egypt and all the nations around them. So that in the time of famine, not only would they have food, but they would also be able to supply food for everybody around. Amen. And that's why he said, man, you got this kind of wisdom. I'm going to put you right here next to me. But he's still in a storm. See, he's still dealing with storms in his life related to his family. He hadn't seen his family in years. He hadn't seen his family in years. He just getting out of prison. He got put in prison and was forgotten about. I'm just trying to get you to understand that you could be going through a storm right now, but you also should be doing some things to operate your gift.
All right. Amen. All right.
Because his gift has made room for him and brought him before great need. Yeah. So even when you're in a storm, your gift can keep you moving and keep you going in a direction that God has planned for your life. Does that make sense to anybody? Yeah. So he got out. So watch this. So it says in verse 46, it says, and Joseph was 30 years old. Now he'd have been in prison from the time he was 17, y'all, till now he's 30. That's a storm. Amen. He ain't seen his family. He don't know nothing about his family. And I got a minute and 36 seconds to tell y'all everything else. How that gonna happen, Jesus? Amen. Okay, all right. This is how we're gonna do it. So now watch this, because I'm gonna close this. So in the midst of him being placed in position, once the famine time came, he began to operate and do what he needed to do to distribute food. And so that Pharaoh now, people started coming to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, do whatever Joseph said. Amen. Do whatever Joseph said. So he's operating. Who shows up? His family. His family shows up. And his family shows up. And so they don't recognize him because he is, let's see, he was 30, it was 7 years of lean years, so he's 37. Got it? Now they're in the 2nd year of famine. So he's what? 39. He's 39. So So he's 39 years old now. His family shows up because they heard, his father heard that there's food in Egypt. There's famine everywhere. So everybody's starving. So he sends his boys, and his boys come before him and they don't even recognize him because they hadn't seen him since he was 17 years old. So he recognizes that they don't know who he is. And he's hard on them, and he's going, you should read the story. You go through and read the story. But the dream has come to pass. Now, there's a statement in here that I do want to read because as it relates to him, it can be misinterpreted. It can. If you go to Genesis chapter 45, Genesis 45, they find out that it's him. Genesis 45 and 5. Notice it says, now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves. In other words, he's telling them now, once they just discovered who he is, he's telling them, he says now, therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. Notice this statement. I want you to hear this. For God did send me before you to preserve your life. To preserve life. You see that statement? Verse 7 says, and God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Now, I'm going to say something right here. This is where people get interpretation of God doing stuff, taking folk through stuff to grow them up in bed. If you hear this and you just hear this with no understanding, you would think, yeah, he took him through all that so he could get him there. I submit this to you. I believe that God had a plan to get Joseph to that place all along.
Amen.
I don't believe it was divine order for his brothers to try to kill him, to throw him in a pit, to sell him in. But God ain't going to send nobody, get somebody sold and sit and almost killed and everything, and brothers have to talk each other out of killing him before. That's not God. I believe God had a plan to exalt Joseph and put him in that position all along.
Amen.
But I believe that Joseph messed it up by talking too much. And I'm going to say this. I think Satan was trying to kill him. Because he talked so much, Satan heard the story. So Satan wanted to kill him too. I believe he got in one of them brothers and said, let's kill him. Because if he can kill him, he can stop the dream from manifesting and stop God's plan from manifesting. But I don't believe you can read that. You have to be careful not to assume, okay, God took him through all of that so that he can get him. I believe God had a plan to get him there without going through all that. And God got a plan for you to get you where you need to be without going through all of that.
Amen.
Somebody say amen. Yeah. He's not going to tempt you with evil to get you to an appointed place. Now, did he cause it to work? I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you what I think on this. Joseph, planned by God, was not aborted because Joseph stayed in God.
Amen.
When he had every opportunity to bail out on God, he stayed in God. He was in prison and he stayed in God. He got approached by Potiphar's wife, but he stayed in God. He didn't get bitter. He didn't get angry. He didn't jump off the ship. He stayed in God. So the point of this is, even when you're in a storm, stay in God. Because the favor can continue to work on your life as long as you stay in God. Stay in there, you'll get to the other side. But the enemy is going to tempt you to quit. Y'all remember? Oh, Lord.
Amen.
this zero back there. I'm trying to act like I don't say it. Y'all remember this guy that went through a bunch of hardship and he had a bunch of friends around him telling him to quit? Just his wife even told him just curse God and die.
Job.
Y'all remember Job? But you know he wouldn't? We hear that story about Job, but we don't really focus on what's on the other side. He said he restored him. All. Everything. Double for his trouble. Because he wouldn't curse God. He stayed in God. We glorify the trouble. But we don't talk about the fact that he got double for his trouble.
Amen.
Say, stay in God.
Stay in God.
Look at your neighbor and say, stay in God.
Stay in God.
So even though we're going through storms, y'all listen to me. This is ministering to me more than ministering to you. I bet you that. I bet you. I'm shouting on the inside. No matter what you're dealing with.
Yes.
Stay in God.
Don't let the enemy convince you to get out of God.
Amen. Amen.
Keep that word.
Stay in God.
Keep confessing that word.
Stay in God.
Even though you don't feel like anything's going on. It's going on.
Yeah.
The favor of God is working in your life. Say stay in God.
Stay in God.
Say stay in God.
Stay in God.
Y'all get anything from me?
Yes,
Was it good?
Yeah.
Listen, I hope this is helping you because we all dealing with stuff and we're all going through situations and circumstances. And it is easy to bail on God.
Amen.
The enemy makes it easy. It's an easy out, Brown. He tried to create an easy out. And we have to be careful that we don't bite the bait. We don't take the bait.
Amen.
Let's do it God's way. Let's do things God's way. And when doing things God's way, we keep the favor of God working on our lives. We're not trying to earn God's favor. We just standing in what belongs to us.
That's right.
Amen.
We're just standing in what belongs to us. He tries to trick us out of what already belongs to us. Amen? Amen. If you're here today and you've never received Jesus as Lord of your life, I'd like for you to consider receiving the invitation to receive Jesus. We always like to make it easy.